Hello and welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk. Just when you thought I was done with Bond, I'm back. So I've reviewed No Time to Die. I've reviewed all the Bond movies, in fact, now. I've done mini ranking videos of Connery's era, Moore's era, Brosnan's era. I've done Daniel Craig's era just fairly recently. But 26 Bond movies, 25 official Bond movies. But we all know that Never Say Never Again was produced, was released. And whether you like it or not, it is Bond. It's not part of the official catalogue, but it's Sean Connery playing James Bond, Agent 007, doing the things that Agent 007 James Bond normally does in James Bond movies. Let's face it, it's a Bond movie, unofficial or not. So I'm counting it as part of this list. So don't think, I'm acknowledging that if you don't want to accept it as an official Bond film, that is fine. But to get over the hurdle of people saying, where's Never Say Never Again? I'm sticking it on this list. I'm going to try and race through them as quickly as possible because, as I say, I've reviewed them all, so you can find out my full thoughts on them. I've even done mini rankings of each of the Bonds, so again, you can find out my thoughts again on them. So I don't want to go on and on and on about each of these films. So I'll try and be quick. I'm going to start with the worst, as usual. Work our way to the best. And number 26 is Never Say Never Again. Yes, there you go. We got a guy who dragged Eon through the courts to try and pull the rights away for Bond so that he could make his own Bond franchise. It stopped them from being able to use Blofeld or Spectre for years and years and years. Eventually he made a Bond film, and what he did was give us a remake of Thunderball that's not as good. Well done. Number 25 is Moonraker. Yeah, made no secret, I detest this film. I've tried multiple times to watch it and enjoy it from a cheesy ham kind of perspective, as people are often prone to tell me. I just can't. I can't do it. Coming off the back of The Spy Who Loved Me, which is a really great Bond movie, what they do to the character of Jaws in this is pathetic. It dilutes one of the best henchmen, turns him into something that is just a laughing stock. It's not a good film. The first half of the movie is pretty good. There's some dark moments. It seems to be taken seriously, double taking pigeons aside. As soon as you get to the halfway mark, it just goes down the toilet. And number 24, this is the one that is really going to crease people up, especially if they're long-time Bond fans, die-hard Bond purists. From Russia with Love. Before you attack me, look, I recognise it's a well-made film. The way it's shot, the performances are all well and good and that. I think it's got a really great Bond girl in it. Very beautiful. There's a lot of espionage stuff in there. It really taps into that spy thriller genre, the way that a lot of Bond movies after it kind of veered away from, and because they went for the more larger-than-life set pieces. It's just dull. The last 20-25 minutes is pretty entertaining once Bond starts getting into, knocking off all the villains that we've seen throughout the movie. But man, there's a lot of Shawshank before we get to that redemption. It's just everything before that last act is so dull. So dull. I can't tell you one action set piece until that final act. It just feels like a lot of talking, a lot of walking, a few little gypsy fights that aren't entertaining whatsoever because they just look weird. Beyond that, no. I fall asleep every time. I've tried about 3 times with this movie. First time I saw this movie, I didn't see it all the way through. I actually saw it from those last 25 minutes and was just thoroughly entertained. I thought, I can see why everyone thinks From Russia with Love is one of the best. I'm going to have to check that out in full, go back to the beginning. And I did, and I fell asleep. it's not for me. Number 23 is Diamonds Are Forever. This was Connery's last official Bond movie, and he's really phoning it in. He's coasting in this, big time. I don't like the setting, the Las Vegas setting. Doesn't feel very Bond to me at all. It just feels sleazy, and as Las Vegas kind of is. Yeah, it doesn't do it for me. Number 22 is The Man with a Golden Gun. This is a Roger Moore Bond film, and yeah, it was kind of a rush job, really. So it was released a year after Live and Let Die. It was put into production very, very quickly and released, and I think it shows, to be honest. A lot of the scenes, the way they're shot, just like feel very kind of dry run. Just, yeah, point the camera, shoot, let's get out of here. Seeing Bond, or more to the point, seeing Roger Moore try to do kung fu as they tap into the whole Bruce Lee kind of kung fu movie aesthetic, it doesn't work because Roger Moore isn't Bruce Lee. Christopher Lee as a main villain should have been better than what it is, but unfortunately the way he's written, it's just not really given that much to do. He's just some dude who hides out in the middle of nowhere shooting people with a golden gun. Number 21 is You Only Live Twice. Amazing sets, you know, that iconic volcano lair. There's some really great action sequences, but it just feels a bit dated, a bit cheesy, a bit hammy. Seeing, yeah, Sean Connery at 6 foot, what is it? 6'5" was he, or something like that? He was a tall dude. He was big, and he was as white as they come. You know, Scottish guy. Yeah, seeing them camouflage him as a Japanese man. Sorry, it's a bit too much for me to take. It just gets silly. It gets silly. Now, much a surprise to me as anyone is number 20, which is Die Another Day, which is definitely Pierce Brosnan's worst outing. Not the best outing to go out on. You know, I'd if I was an actor playing Bond, I would want to come back and do another one just to redeem the legacy, so to speak, that I'm leaving behind. Yeah. Unfortunately, this suffers from the same problems that Moonraker does, which is that it's got a good first half that takes things seriously, that does some good stuff, and then it takes a nosedive in the second half. Now, the degree to which I place these films over one another is all into, you know, just to what extent that all takes place. And for me, I genuinely believe the first half of Die Another Day to be a really good Bond film. It is. It's on course for being a very good Bond film. It's just once it gets into the overblown sci-fi territory and the ice palace and crazy windsurfing, it disappears down the toilet. Whereas if you look at, you know, Moonraker, yes, it's pretty good first half. It's quite dark and serious, but it ain't that memorable to me, to be honest. There's not a lot I can pull out of it that I remember. Whereas with Die Another Day, there's some really great scenes. That opening set piece is incredible, you know, and doing stuff with Bond that we've not done before, seeing him be a broken kind of man, that was quite a, oh wow, they're going somewhere different here. I like this. This is good. You know, the sword fighting sequence I thought was incredible. I love the locations, some of the action pieces. I think Pierce Brosnan is on form. There are elements to the story here that I think they take later on with Skyfall and kind of redo, but redo them better. You know, as Bond being someone who's a bit broken, bit kind of run down, and having to come back and prove that no, he's still got it in him. Yeah, I just think that Moonraker, Die Another Day, both got good first halves. It's just that the first half of Die Another Day is much better than the first half of Moonraker. Number 19 is Live and Let Die. Now, from here on out, I like all these movies. You know, again, to varying degrees. They'd all get a 3-star or higher rating from me. Live and Let Die is a 3-star film for me. It would be a 4-star film, but I don't like all the voodoo stuff. It doesn't grab me. I'm just not into it. It's like Candyman, Day of the Dead, all the, or is it, oh no, it's, yeah, was it Day of the Dead or Farewell to the Flesh? Either way, the Candyman sequels, when they had all the voodoo and the New Orleans stuff in it, it's like, if you go to New Orleans, you've got to do voodoo. You've got, you know, it's like that's it. That's all they've got in the culture. Whatever, exploitation flick. That's what this is. It's a blaxploitation flick, only as a Bond movie. Now, the best thing that Live and Let Die's got going for it is its villains. So Yaphet Kotto as Kananga, really great villain. He's got a fantastic henchman with this kind of metal hand claw thing. It's just, yeah, I just, that for me is the standout, is the villains. It's got really great villains, some tremendous action set pieces. Unfortunately, it's also got Sheriff Pepper that kind of makes you ask it, what were they thinking? But yeah, so voodoo, Pepper, bring it down somewhat, but it's still quite an entertaining ride. Number 18 is A View to a Kill. I think this one's a little bit underrated. I think a lot of people are really down on this one. To an extent, I can understand why. The biggest thing for me, really, that lets it down is Roger Moore. He's so old. He's so old in this film. It's embarrassing. It really is, when you see him trying to do action scenes and you're just like, dude, come on. It's this should have been Timothy Dalton's first movie. That's all I'll say. If this had been Timothy Dalton's first, I think it would be much more respected. Besides that, I think Christopher Walken makes an excellent villain. I think the film, for the most part, went a bit darker, something that Roger Moore wasn't particularly fond of, but whatever. I'm fine with that. And yeah, Tanya Roberts. I had a bit of a crush on Tanya Roberts when I was a kid, when watching this. I had a little bit of a Tanya Roberts obsession for a time. I don't quite know why. You know, looking at it now, I'm not quite sure why. But she's all right. She's not quite as bad as everyone makes out. Yeah, her voice is a little bit annoying, but as a kid, man, she was pretty hot. Number 17 is For Your Eyes Only. Pretty much a really great Bond movie that is kind of ruined by this whole section within it, in which this young ice skater girl, who is definitely not of the age of consent, seems to be making a beeline for Bond, and it's just icky. It's just like, yeah, don't go there. I don't buy it. You know, Moore was getting on at this point. Let's not forget that Moore took over the role of Bond from Connery when they were the same age. So when Connery was getting too old for the role and stepped out, the same age, Roger Moore stepped in and carried on going for 7 more films. So yeah, his age starts to show pretty quickly, and seeing this young girl kind of trying to make moves on him is just icky. Beyond that, there's some really great set pieces in it. You know, the stuff when they're climbing up, they're scaling up that rock. Even now, it kind of gives me sweaty palms. As someone who doesn't like heights, doesn't like the loss of control, it's just, yeah, it's well shot. I think John Glenn does a fantastic job. There's a quite a hinge, quite a hint of a. Well, it's not even a hint. It's just a dark streak. It's just, yeah. Bond has a bit of a dark streak in this. You know, there's that moment when he kicks the car, kills the guy in cold blood, which again is something Moore wasn't that keen on, but I thought it was right for the character, given what the villain that he kills represents, what he's done, the things that he's done. Yeah. I think it's a pretty good Bond movie. Like I say, it's just slightly let down by that one issue. Number 16 is Thunderball. We've got some really good villains in this, an assortment of villains that I really enjoy seeing Connery's Bond kind of take out one by one. You can just tell that everyone on board is having fun, really enjoying themselves. Connery's just having a blast. And that sense from the actors just comes out off the screen. Things get a bit silly, but in the way you would expect from a Bond film. You know, a lot of the tropes kind of established in the previous, well, really the previous 3 films, but particularly Goldfinger. And yeah, it was just great stuff. Great stuff. Just a few stuff towards the end where they do some underwater scenes where the moment you get underwater, the excitement kind of fizzles because everyone's moving slowly. It's like, how do you do an action sequence underwater when everyone's like, roar, roar. It's not that exciting. But the stuff on the boat, which bizarrely they speed up some of the camera work when they're on the boat above, almost like they're trying to make up for the fact that everything below was so slow. So we'll shoot the stuff on the boat and we'll speed it up so it goes faster and more exciting. So the final act could have been better, but again, everything before it is grade A Bond. Number 15 is Octopussy. This would be my favourite Roger Moore Bond film if it wasn't for a few things, just a few things. One of them being like the ridiculousness of the Tarzan thing. Yeah, Bond escapes through the trees and then we hear this kind of Tarzan roar and you're just like, why? What? Like who? When you all got together in a room to discuss making this movie, putting it together, who was the idiot who came up with that? Who was the idiot who said, you know what this moment needs? This moment needs a Tarzan scream. Oh yeah, the audience are going to love it. So there's a few little things like that kind of bring it down, but other than that, it's got some really great villains, it's got some exotic locations that are fun to go to with Bond. The tone is quite dark in comparison to a lot of Bond movies. And yeah, I like the ending. It has the potential to be really silly because we see Bond dressed in a clown outfit, and yet it works because of the situation that he's involved in. It makes it somehow more sinister, somehow darker, somehow more urgent and pressing. It's just, yeah, it's really well handled. It's just, yeah, just stop making stupid decisions for little moments that can really knock a film down just because they're the thing that you remember. You know, when someone says Octopussy, the first thing I remember is, oh! And it's like, why is that the first thing I remember with Octopussy? That should not be the first thing I remember about the Bond film that you've just mentioned. You know what I mean? So that's the damage that it does, making stupid decisions like that. Number 14 is Tomorrow Never Dies. I enjoy this one from purely an action kind of aesthetic. It's got some really good action in it. Michelle Yeoh is great. I've always loved Michelle Yeoh. I think she's a really good presence. I think she's badass. She's believably badass because she can genuinely kick ass. You know, you stick her in a role like the one she's in here, I believe it because that's who she is. The villains are the main weakness of this film. I think, you know, whether it's Carver, played by Jonathan Pryce. I really like Jonathan Pryce. You know, he's done some really great work of late. You know, I think of The Two Popes. What he did in that film was really incredible. Yeah, I like him as an actor, but he's not written very well. I think he layers on the ham, layers on the cheese. It doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel like a good Bond villain to me. And then Carver's got these underlings. One played by Vincent Schiavelli, who again is just too cheese with the role. Schiavelli can be a good actor, you know. Just check out the X-Files episode Humbug. He can do some really good stuff. But again, it's just amping up the cheese. And then we've got this run-of-the-mill kind of henchman of Carver's, this blonde guy who's he's a German blonde guy who just feels no pain, and it's like, yeah, all right, you weren't even trying with that one, were you? It was just the most generic kind of henchman that they could possibly come up with. Other than that, though, like I say, it is pretty entertaining. Pierce Brosnan's great as Bond. You know, this is his second movie. He warmed up the crowd with GoldenEye, got a good reaction, and I think when he came back, he felt more comfortable in the role, and I think that shows. He's got a lot more charisma here. He's kind of just, yeah, he's taken on the role with relish. It's just, I wish he was placed in a film that was as good as GoldenEye. Number 13 is The Living Daylights, which is Timothy Dalton's first run at Bond. Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. Again, the final act loses me a bit. We've got some whole stuff with the Taliban in which there are friends. try running that by us today. Yeah, and the villain is not memorable, I guess, would be my main takeaway. I don't think the villains in this are that memorable. Again, you got the henchman, the main henchman dude, who again is the generic blonde kind of Swiss type, you know, blonde European. If you're European and you're blonde, blue eyes, you're a villain. A lot of Bond fans, a lot of Bond purists that, you know, I've spoken to over the years, they seem to really love the fight between Bond and this guy on the plane that takes place, you know, outside the back of this plane. And I've never been a fan because, yeah, the location's great. It looks amazing. But the fight itself is just like, it's just two guys flopping around on some sandbags. And number 12 is Goldfinger. Now, this is the film that really kind of elevated Bond into pop cultural just phenomenon status. It just, yeah, it put a brand new sheen on what had come before, and it kind of downplayed the espionage side of things a bit more, although that is still there, and amped up the, you know, the over-the-top villains, the gadgets, the, you know, exotic locations, the just Bond doing all these kind of crazy stunts and throwing quips out when he's in dangerous, death-defying situations. It just, yeah, it just, you know, crazy henchmen with like gimmicks, throwing hats that can saw you in half. It's just, yeah, it's quintessential Bond. It is, you know, if you don't like Goldfinger, Bond ain't for you. That's basically the cut and thrust of it. If you don't like Bond, if you don't like Goldfinger, that's kind of like the litmus test for early Bond. At any rate, I'd say, you know, from the Connery and Moore era, and to some extent Dalton, if you take that whole era, stick on Goldfinger for someone. If they don't like it, then chances are they're not a Bond fan. You know, I think things may change a bit once you get into Brosnan and Craig, because the style kind of changes a bit. But yeah, certainly that era. So yeah, I like Goldfinger. I do think it's a little overrated, just a little. You know, not a lot. I'm just, you know, it's not quite the masterpiece it's made out to be. Obviously, Dr. No has yet to appear on this list, so clearly I still think that Connery has a Bond film that is better than this. But I understand why people love this so much. And I think, you know, if I'd have been around during the day this came out and gone to the cinema and seen this, I would probably lap it up even more than I actually do. But no, it's solid stuff. It looks beautiful. Some really great cinematography, amazing set designs. This was when the set designs really started to impress throughout this series. At number 11 is The Spy Who Loved Me. Now, this is my favourite Roger Moore Bond film. In many ways, it is kind of a remake of You Only Live Twice. I just think it's better. It doesn't muddy the waters with, you know, the ethnic kind of stuff of taking your actor and trying to make them Japanese, even though they're clearly very much European, and stuff like that. You know, there's a few things in it have dated less. I think it's got a great henchman in it in Jaws before he was destroyed in Moonraker. I think the settings and the story, you know, bringing this woman in, this female spy who works for the Russians, who's, you know, like, yeah, it's kind of Bond's equal in many ways, having these two come together and have to work this case together. And yeah, it's it's good. It's got some great espionage stuff, really great action set pieces, wonderful sets again, as I say. Some of the model work towards the end hasn't dated particularly well, as can be said for a lot of these movies now. You know, you look at a lot of the wide shots with bases and stuff, and you're looking at them from a distance. Yeah, great back in the day. You look at them now and it's like, hey, it's a model. Great. Nice model work. But no, you can't hold that against it for a film that's like, what, 30, 40 years old. And number 10 is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, this film would be higher if it was Connery. If Connery was in this role, was playing Bond in this film, this would be probably the gold standard for Bond movies. It's just, yeah. Unfortunately, Connery parted ways for a short time. And unfortunately, George Lazenby, who they got in, he's not a great actor, is he? He looks the part. That's the thing. He looks the part. When you see him dressed in the tuxedo, not talking, he looks like Bond. You know, he's the kind of actor who looks good on the poster. But and he's quite a physical actor as well. There's fight scenes in this movie that he handles pretty well. There are certain stunts and things where you can see that, oh yeah, he's doing a bit there. That's good. We can see him on camera doing stuff. But yeah, not the finest of actors, which is a shame because it does let the film down somewhat, particularly during the more emotional moments. You know, one particular moment towards the end of the film in which something very unexpected at the time happened. You know, they tried to go down a different avenue with Bond, let him be a bit more human, kind of have a relationship, have tragedy, have this, that, and the other to build the character a bit more. And yeah, unfortunately, they just didn't have the actor who could sell that stuff. Bit of a wacky plot, must be said. Blofeld as a villain, I've got to say, has never impressed. There's not a single Bond film where Blofeld has been, yes, you know, the Joker to Batman, or, you know, Lex Luthor to Superman. That's who Blofeld is meant to be. He's meant to be the big bad, the arch nemesis of Bond. And there's never been an iteration of him where I've gone, that's it. That is what I'm looking for. Telly Savalas does a pretty good job, but unfortunately his plot, his scheme, just a little bit too wacky. It's like something out of a episode of the 60s Batman series. But you know what? Fine, whatever. It's still a really solid film that takes chances, takes risks, does things that the franchise hasn't done before, just with the wrong actor. Doing that very same thing with Timothy Dalton is number 9, which is License to Kill. Yeah, this film goes, for Bond at this time, this film went dark, went real dark. But more believable as a result. You know, when you think of the world that Bond exists in, it's all well and good having everything that came before. It's fun, you know, all the quips, this, that, and the other. But in all honesty, when you're dealing with that stuff in real life, I would expect to see something more akin to what we get in License to Kill. A film that was kind of disowned by many Bond fans for the longest time, but has kind of started building up more of a fan base since, and for good reason. Again, like I say, it takes things serious. There are costs to Bond's actions. You know, there are stakes. Felix Leiter is literally fed to sharks in this. He's killed, which was just like, what? You know, when you saw this for the first time, having Felix Leiter pop up throughout all those many Bond films prior to this, and then boom, you just got fed to sharks. That was just like, that was intense, man. So yeah, so it goes places that I think took fans a while to get on board with, but if you go back now and you watch it, it feels very much ahead of its time and a lot more watchable as a result. It's got a great villain, a real dark, horrible scumbag villain, and a really interesting kind of henchman role for Benicio del Toro. Yeah, Benicio del Toro as a Bond henchman. It's quite amusing, to be honest. But again, he's pretty dark in this, plays quite a dark character, but it's interesting to see him in an early role. The Bond girls in this are pretty nondescript for me personally. I don't find them that memorable. I think that can be said of both of Timothy Dalton's movies. I don't know if it's the era that they were made in, and that particular type that they were going for at the time just doesn't do it for me. You know, the 80s hairdos and this, that and the other. I'm not particularly big fan of the 80s as a whole. I don't have that kind of nostalgia that a lot of people have. But yeah, I find the Bond girls, the women in Dalton's movies, to be sort of bland. Like I just don't remember them. Like, they don't stick in my memory all that well. I can look at them on the poster and go, yeah, I know you. I've seen you in the movie. I honestly can't remember you all that much. I can't, you know, there's always two women on the poster, and I can't remember which one's which. Who did what now? So yeah, there's that. But even so, everything else, the action, the villain, the stakes, make for a really great Bond film. Number 8 is Spectre. I talked about this in my very recent Daniel Craig Bond ranking. It's just, yeah, very, very, very good film. Great action. Just let down by the final act, which is just feels like it's trying to cram too much in there. It kind of sort of falls to pieces a bit at the end. But other than that, everything up to that point, spectacular. And number 7 is Dr. No. This is obviously my favourite Connery Bond. It is his first Bond, and I really like how just down to earth it is. You know, at this point, the Bond films were not a big money-making franchise. It was the first ever Bond. You know, they were testing the waters, really. They took this book, they bought the rights, we want to make a film. It might not work. People might not go out and see it. Fortunately, they did, and now we have one of the longest running film franchises. But as a result, not a lot of money was spent on this film, really. It was quite a low budget, independent kind of thing. And I think that works to its benefit, really, because it just feels grounded. It feels down to earth. A lot of the situations in it they're not, you know, massive, larger than life, over the top situations. It's just Bond doing espionage, spy work, following clues, and then eventually we do get to a rather over the top kind of location. You know, the big base for the big bad, which is Dr. No himself, and he's got the gimmicky kind of metal hands. And that's when you start going into, oh, that's the Bond I recognise. That's that section of the film. That's the Bond I recognise right there. But that doesn't come till like the last half hour, you know. So, but everything up until then, it's just, yeah, good old spy movie with some nice beats of action in there. So I like it. Connery's fantastic in it. Personally, I think it's his best iteration. I know a lot of people say Goldfinger because he had become comfortable with the role then. He was a lot more, you know, he was having fun with it. But I just feel here, he's like, it feels like he's got something to prove. This feels like a 007 who is very gritty, would quite easily stab you in the back if he thought he could benefit from it. He's quite cold, quite calculated. Yeah, Connery's best. Number 7. Number 6, and I will take some heat for this, some mega heat for this, I am sure. It is the most underrated Bond movie. Quite simply, it's Quantum of Solace. Great character work, really good Bond girl, even though she's not a Bond girl in the traditional sense. She's just, yeah, a really good character. I've said, again, said this just recently in my Daniel Craig Bond ranking. Her and Bond mirror each other. Their characters are going on the same journey, and as a result, they help each other to move on. You know, and it's just, yeah, I think it's a great film. Let down a little bit by some rapid cut editing in the action sequences, but other than that, the story, the characters, fantastic work. Number 5 is GoldenEye. Yeah, Pierce Brosnan's first outing as Bond, and he nails it. Absolutely nails it. You know, Bond was pretty much dead. You know, the Timothy Dalton era didn't go down so well. People are respecting it a bit more now, but at the time, didn't go down so well. So Brosnan was picking up the baton from someone who had essentially killed the franchise. But he does a fantastic job. Right from his opening scenes, he is Bond. And for the longest time, he was my favourite Bond. But yeah, it's a great film. Amazing action set pieces. Some of the best villains throughout the entire Bond franchise, whether it's Sean Bean's 006 or Famke Janssen's Xenia Onatop. I can't even say that name with a straight face. But yeah, just incredible villains. Yeah, I think my biggest letdown for this film, well, there's two things. There's two negatives that bring it down a little bit. One is the character of Boris, who I've always found annoying. I still find annoying. I know a lot of Bond fans are like, yeah, it's quite funny, it's quite amusing, and they use a lot of GIFs, Boris GIFs and stuff, because they get some kind of entertainment value from that character. I don't. I find him annoying, and he's just, every time he pops up in the film, I'm just like, he doesn't belong here. He's too cheesy. He's too over the top, even for this film. And the other thing is a lot of the model work. There's a lot of model work in this film that hasn't dated particularly well. You know, I've said that already with regards to some other Bond films, but yeah, it's just the bit like with the plane where it turns over and then crashes. You watch it and you're like, yeah, there's a model. It's fine, whatever. You know, it's the age of the film, but other than that, it's fantastic. You know, that tank chase sequence in the streets still holds up. Amazing stuff. The final fight between Bond and 006, one of the best fight sequences of any Bond film. So yeah, I love it. At number 4 is The World Is Not Enough. This is my favourite Pierce Brosnan film. Now, for the longest time, GoldenEye was my favourite, but I found myself keep on going back to World Is Not Enough. Like, you know, if it was I fancy watching a Pierce Brosnan Bond film, I'd go to the shelf, I'd look at the 4 that are on the shelf, obviously Die Another Day, I'll take that out of the equation. But I would find that, GoldenEye, The World Is Not Enough. I'd always end up pulling that up. And in the end, I just accepted that, you know what, I like this film more than GoldenEye. I think there's the structure of it, the villains, the plotting of it, the emotional kind of attachment for Bond to the villain just really adds something. There's just, I think it goes a bit deeper. And I think, you know, if you look at Christopher Nolan, who's my favourite director, he's made no secret that he is a big Bond fan. I think he took some elements of The World Is Not Enough and put them into The Dark Knight Rises. You know, if you look at Bane's kind of ties to Talia and whatnot, a lot of that stuff kind of feels very reminiscent of Reynard and Sophie Marceau's character in The World Is Not Enough. Yeah, I think it's very underrated as far as Bond films go. Not to the point of Quantum of Solace, because that film tends to get torn a new hole all the time, whereas The World Is Not Enough most Bond fans are like, yeah, it's all right. They don't hate it, but it's just like, it's just an average Bond film, which I think is unfair, because I just think from a story perspective, from a character development perspective, it's one of the best. So at number 3 is No Time to Die. Excellent send-off for Daniel Craig, who is my favourite Bond. Great action, great cinematography, brilliant character work, all built around this theme of legacy, the things that we leave behind. I loved it, and I've only seen it once, so multiple viewings could send it either way, really, but I would be more inclined to say that it would send it upwards more than it will downwards. Number 2 is Skyfall. I've talked about this film to death. I think I've said so much about it on my channel already. It's great. I love it. Really beautiful kind of, yeah, everything. It's a 5-star Bond film. It's the first on this list, one of only 2 5-star Bond films. So yeah, probably the best villain, I'd say. You know, as much as I love 006 in GoldenEye, I think, yeah, probably my favourite villain is Javier Bardem's villain in Skyfall. And so, of course, number 1 is Casino Royale. It is the best Bond film as far as I'm concerned, by a hair. It's got to be said. Like I say, Skyfall and Casino Royale, I like that. They're just, yeah, I watch one I want to watch the other. Yeah, but Casino Royale, it's where Craig started. It's an absolute, you know, yeah, hit of adrenaline. It's just proved all the naysayers wrong. Martin Campbell, for the second time as director, salvaged this franchise and brought it back from the brink. So there you go. There is my Bond ranking. I will remind you, if I haven't said so already at any rate, this is subjective. This is my list. It is not your list. We don't need to sling mud at each other. It's okay for you to have a difference of opinion. It's okay for you to think my list is rubbish. What's not okay is to be a douchebag and start calling names and things like that. They're just movies at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't respond to those kind of comments. You will not get a response from me for those kind of comments. If you would like to leave some comments that are a bit more conversational, you know, if you want to tell me what your ranking would be, what your favourites are, what your least favourites are, who is your favourite Bond, who is your least favourite Bond, then leave them in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching this video. I know it's a long one, but until next time, cracking.